everybody, welcome back to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. Thanks for joining us. It's Monday. It is almost December. We're almost at the end of 2021. Where did this year go?
You mean 2020, John?
You know what's funny about that? By the way, John, James here. Lacey is, she wasn't able to record. She's all good. She wasn't able to record with us, so it's just the guys' night out. Me and James. Blue Crew holding down the fort here in the base. Lacey will be back next Monday with us. So we will miss her dearly, but she'll be back next Monday. So apologies for the Lacey diehards who are wishing that they heard her voice today. But not the case.
Gilla fans?
Oh, I like that. That works. Gilla fans. She's going to trademark that now. Watch that. All right. So yeah, you know what's funny, James? I realized how long the whole pandemic thing's been going on when I took my winter coat out from like the closet to use it. And I reached into my pocket and there was a mask in there.
Yeah.
I'm just like, this has been going on way too long.
Yeah.
Way too long,
same
man.
thing happened to me. Like you pull out that coat that you haven't worn in a while and sure enough, there was a mask in it. I was like, oh, that's where the gray one went. You know?
Yeah. I was honestly like, oh, I hope there's like $20 in here. And I reach in my pocket, just pull out that old, like, and it's like the cheap blue mask with the string on it. Like that one. Yeah. So
technically the good mask.
Still going on.
Really?
It's like, yeah, they're good. I mean, who knows what it's going to be like at Celebration in May. I don't know if they're going to be like, hopefully things are better. Jeez. But as long as the event happens at this point, that's my main hope. But so before we get into the stories here, this past week, like any time Adam Driver touches a fringe element that could even remotely tie into Star Wars, it makes people salivate and rub their hands together like, oh, something's going on here. And it just, like this site in the UK, they had a chance to interview him for House of Gucci or whatever. And they asked him, like, you know, you seem to be doing a lot more serious pieces, art pieces, award type movies. Are you kind of done with these big franchise things? And he just said, no, well, not necessarily. He's like, if the right project comes along, I wouldn't say no to that. And that was it. And somehow some sites and stuff took that and ran with it as he said he would be open to coming back to Star Wars as Kylo Ren and Ben Solo, which is dangerous because, and I'll just say this, and then I'll throw it to you. Like there's a lot of social media accounts and stuff that have big followings, and all they do, they don't even have websites or anything like that. They just tweet stuff. So they tweet, Adam Driver says he would be open to returning as Kylo Ren. It gets thousands and thousands of likes and impressions and retweets and quote tweets. And then that stuff is what gets thrown into the zeitgeist or whatever you want to call it. And, you know, Thanksgiving dinner tables, and people are talking about it and saying like Adam Driver would come back. And then that becomes one of those things where people hang on to that because people, like, whether they liked him or didn't like him or they didn't like how his ending was, the character is a white hot issue, and Adam Driver is very popular. So people latched onto it with, you know, oh my God, there's hope that he might come back or something like that. And it's just not the case. Like, he didn't say anything like that. So what was your take on all that?
All I was going to add was that was what I noticed too, is that every time I saw the headline, because this is not an important headline unless it's to Star Wars fans, you know, but every time I saw the headline somewhere, it was, hey, Adam Driver was asked about Star Wars, and I'm like, nope, wrong. He was not asked about Star Wars. He was asked about large, like, AAA titles, like the big franchise pictures, and would he return to it? Now, I could loosely understand, because what's the biggest AAA title he's ever been in? You know, if not the only. Can you think of anything else that he's ever been like? I mean, I think that's probably the only thing. So when he is answering that question loosely, you got to think they're talking about Star Wars here, So I think you kind of have to put the pieces to get to that result, but I do think it's unfair that that's the headline, because that's not the question he was asked, and it's not even really technically the answer he was giving, because he was asked about AAA titles, and would he return to it? He could very well be answering yes, if another big, not Star Wars, another big franchise came along, I would be down to do a big AAA thing like that. Yeah. But his answer still very well could be personally, I'm never going back to Star Wars. So
yeah, like they could have been like...
It could be. We don't know. That wasn't the question asked. That's not the question he answered.
Right. They could have been like, do you like Pirates of the Caribbean? Would you ever want to be a pirate? He'd be like, I wouldn't say no. And people would be like, Adam Driver wants to come back as Kylo Ren in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Adam Driver was asked about the fandom of Star Wars and his thoughts on Kylo Ren's passing. It's like, no, it had to do with pirates.
Oh God. Yeah. So that was interesting. And hopefully people didn't get their hopes up too much on that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd be down if he wanted to come back if it made sense, but I don't think that's happening. All right, so we got that out of the way. We have a two-man operation here, James, so it'll be interesting. This has been a while since we've done this. I don't remember the last time we had one of us out, but anyway, we will proceed forward, and as always on Monday, we tackle the latest news in our top segment. What do we got, James?
It's the Resistance.
Resistance report this week has a lot to do with some stuff that has to, with the Empire magazine, right? So this Empire magazine, we've always looked at it. It's a regular thing that they tend to get when new Star Wars is coming around the corner. Empire is going to be one of those magazines that's going to get, a front cover and probably an exclusive piece. And one of the first things we got here is a new official image released. Now, granted, actually, I'm thinking here, this was not Empire, but a lot of the news we're talking about comes from that Empire article. This particular image of Book of Boba Fett was from the Disney UK website, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry if I was a little misleading on that. Like, you'll see later when we get into the stories, it seems like all of them come from the Empire article. But this particular image was released, and I think John really wants to talk about it because, again, same as the Adam Driver thing, you see an image, and where does the fandom go with the image, but to a place that isn't necessarily even what the image is trying to show you. Long story short, it's a picture of Boba and Fennec, and they're standing in this room, and they just happen to be to the side, on this side of the photo, and there's a big empty spot over here. So the speculation is, why is the framing off? What are they hiding? Who did they erase? I think this comes off the heels of Spider-Man Far From Home, like Lizard getting punched, and it's like they're clearly taking people out of the thing, and it's like, we don't know this, we don't know what's going on. So what are your thoughts on this image as it is, and then maybe a little bit into the how fans maybe took it?
I mean, yeah, the image is cool just because it's like, all right, this is a real actual shot and look at this series, which is always great to see. So I wrote our version of the article on this. This was off the heels of a lot of people already speculating on social media and stuff about who did they edit out of this photo. And I was talking to Val about it, the site owner at Star Wars News.net, and he made a great point, because he's in the visual effects industry, and he said, it'd be much easier for them to have just cropped this image than to have spent all that time to edit someone out and and restore the ray of light coming through and all the dust and stuff. He's like, if they wanted to hide something, just crop the image. And I thought that was just a simply put great point. Now, they're clearly in that room from the trailer where they meet that Ithorian that's speaking English via translator, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. So
it looks like that's going to be a little bit more than just a chat as they have their guns drawn there. The image is interesting. Now you see Boba Fett's armor; it is different, so it does check out with our report from a few months ago that he is changing a bit of his look, especially in the lower half. His like knee pads and his boots all look different. Boba Fett just looks different. Like it's not even his look; it's just he's definitely stockier and bulkier than we remember him from like Return of the Jedi and stuff. And whether they explain that or not, I don't know. I don't see how a guy would put on weight having been inside of a beast for however long he was in there, but maybe the Tusken Raiders fed him well. Who knows? But in terms of the speculation thing, yeah, it just always seems like, and it's a beautiful part of being a fan. It's just like that fun aspect of using your imagination to guess on like, oh, what could this mean, or what is that, or what could that be in that trailer? Who is that standing behind that person that looks like this? And I love doing that stuff, but you just got to make sure you're not setting yourself up for something that isn't going to happen, and then you get mad because that didn't occur, or you weren't able to call it correctly or something like that, because people like being able to call things for cred or whatever, some fake online currency called clout. But I brought up an example because I remember this happening with The Rise of Skywalker and those shots of the crew overlooking the Death Star, and there's a lot of empty space on one of the shots facing them and a shot from behind them. And I remember a lot of people saying like, that's because Ben Solo's going to be there with them, or R2-D2's in the shot, but they didn't want to show him here yet. And I remember a lot of that going around. This reminded me exactly of that. And my conclusion is just that image is what that image is. I don't think an official Disney account is going to go through that. I don't think it's the Star Wars way to really do that. The only example I could think of, James, I think you may have pointed that out a few years ago, was one of the Solo trailers. They showed like Chewie or something walking down on the beaches of Savareen, but he wasn't holding the luggage or something like that. It was like something like that.
He was missing in 2 shots in the trailer. So the first trailer came out, and it was Han and Kira, and they were walking. And then in the next trailer, he was behind them carrying the luggage. And then there's another shot of Han looking up at the Falcon, and it was just him in the first trailer. But in the second trailer, it's him and Chewie looking up at the Falcon. And it's it's literally the exact same shot. It's like they very clearly added this character later.
Yeah. So, but I don't know.
It's
What's your
almost
take on this?
like you can't argue it. It's not like Star Wars hasn't done that before. And that wasn't even a
that was the only
that wasn't
example
even
I
a
could think
photo.
of.
That was like actually
but also,
footage.
Solo went through a lot of changes too. So that could have been an outlier. But what's your take on this thing? I haven't really talked to you about it.
So there's 2 things. Number one, in the example you gave, I thought it was a little crazy back then when people saw that and they were like, well, there's clearly this. I'm like, no, look at the photo you're looking at. You have 3 characters on this side. And then what is taking up the space on the other side? The Death Star. That's what you want to see. There's a framing that's going on there, and people are only looking at the characters and they're missing the story of what's happening here. This is 3 characters and the Death Star. That's what they're showing you. Now, to be fair, when I look at this image of Book of Boba Fett, first of all, it doesn't. The other thing looked like a scene from the movie. Like you go, oh, that looks like a screenshot from the movie. This does not look like a screenshot from the show. This looks like a piece of promotional material to me.
You said that about the Mandalorian too, though. Like in those shots of him fighting like the Trandoshans and stuff, you're like, this looks like it's action figures posed or something like that. And there are scenes. Yeah, and he did fight them in that scene, so.
Yeah. This, to me, looks like a promotional thing, and I think part of why I'm thinking that, too, is because the framing is a little weird. In the other shot, they were showing you the Death Star. In this scene, they're showing you a wall. There's nothing really there that's sticking out. Now, I don't think that means they replaced it, but I think what that means is they probably built this image around some sort of promotional thing that's like, here's your characters, and here's where text or copy is going to go. Or like if this were the end of a YouTube video, that's where like your channel and your other video would be. It would be sitting over there on the side. And so to me, I just saw this and I go, oh, well, I don't know why the framing is all off, but it's probably just another piece of promotional material that they decided to release, but it just was built for something else, and it is what it is. But I would be surprised if this was a shot in the show, because I don't know what it's really showcasing to be in that odd framing like that. That being said, I do not think they erased somebody from the thing.
Okay, I was going to say,
I'm not on that page at all. But I am saying, to that point, it is odd framing. Whereas in the other example that you gave, I'm like, that's not odd framing, and I really think those people were really crazy. This to me does seem a little like, well, it's odd. Let's try to make sense of the oddity here. What does that mean? I don't think it's the person, but I do think there's probably something up with this, that it probably had a different intent. But I don't know. It could be a shot from the show. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that idea that, you can totally picture the Book of Boba Fett logo being right there.
Boom, right to the right to the left.
Yeah. So, I think it's much ado about nothing, but I do love when fans speculate, as long as they don't get mad when things don't come to be. But this seems like an innocent one where it's just like, oh, I wonder if someone's there.
Right.
But I did like the fact that we were able to tie that in and see that as clearly that spot where that Ithorian was. Now, do they kill him? What happens to that character? We'll find out in, what's today's date? Is it 29th?
Soon enough, yeah. Just a little less than a month, or maybe about
a month away. But
yeah,
a month from today, the Book of Boba Fett. How about that?
Well, let's get into the stuff that I was alluding to earlier, which is the Empire magazine reveals the exclusive images and interviews coming from the Book of Boba Fett. One of the things that they had here was a couple images, and one showcasing Robert Rodriguez, practicing or kind of showing how the scene is going to go down. He looks like he's playing paintball, but that's probably a safety thing with masks and probably dust and dirt too. Probably makes a lot of sense to have like a heavy mask on. But yeah, it was in the description for this, about what's going on. They explain the show's premise again and how you ended up in this point. But giving us a little bit of detail on Boba Fett, explaining that, he's a successful bounty hunter, but he's not necessarily a successful leader yet. So he's not used to being the new guy in this type of scenario where he's actually trying to play leader, if you will. So he has a lot of street smarts, but maybe doesn't know exactly how to play the game. Kind of like Thrawn, I guess, sort of like he doesn't quite understand the political landscape, even though he's been a strategist like his entire life. So it's kind of maybe similar in that regard. Yeah. What were your thoughts reading what we have yet of the article? But it's probably Monday. This issue is probably out, and there's more stories. But here we are right now.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, that element of Jabba being gone, and we see Bib Fortuna in the chair and stuff like that, and are we thought to assume that he took over the Empire, Jabba's Empire? Like
Bib Fortuna?
It's hard to. It's hard to. Did I not say that right? I said Bib.
No, you did. I was just making sure you weren't describing Boba. You're saying it's kind of hard to believe that Bib Fortuna took over Jabba.
Yeah. So he's sitting there and he's all plump and jolly and stuff like that. Like, did he really take over Jabba's thing? I find that hard to believe. So was he just kind of like chilling and just took over the palace, and there wasn't really much crime going on? I don't really know, nor do I care. But there's obviously this thing, like when in any type of story, when you hear like, oh, the king is dead, and it's like, who's going to take over? Like, let's siege the castle and let's take over the Empire and let's do this. Like, Boba Fett isn't the only person who has this idea. So I think that's going to be a part of this story too, where there's going to be other syndicates or other hungry people who want to get their claws in there and take over what was Jabba's. I think Boba Fett might run into that and be challenged by people who don't believe that he has the ability or the stones to take over that role. And I think that plays into what Favreau's saying about how he's been an expert bounty hunter, and that's all he's ever known. This is a new territory for him. How is he going to handle that? And I think that's going to be an interesting angle too. But in terms of, Boba Fett, like, and I said this when we saw the trailer of how he said, I tend to rule with peace by using peace or whatever he says, like,
I intend to rule.
I intend to rule with peace, or right? Was that his line?
Um,
Jabba ruled with fear.
I
I
intend to rule with respect.
With respect. Okay. I think that's BS. And, I said that when we saw the trailer. I think he's just testing people to see their allegiances and to see how to call their bluff sort of thing. I think he's going to be pretty ruthless and brutal in this show, and I hope he is, because he's Boba Fett. I don't need a passive diplomatic Boba Fett. That's boring. This is the Book of Boba Fett. It's a Robert Rodriguez show.
Yeah.
This isn't like a Wes Anderson Boba Fett series where he's going to be sitting on a couch staring at the camera for an hour. This is going to be pretty raw. If you've seen anything by Robert Rodriguez, there's a lot of action. There's a lot of violence, and he's all about that. And that shot of him swinging that heavy weapon reminded me of that shot of Jon Favreau holding that Gatling gun on the behind the scenes of The Mandalorian. Like, no, this is how you got to do it, guys. So I think it's going to be a very physical, very violent show for Star Wars standards, of course. Not going to be a lot of blood or anything like that. But I think that's the kind of cocktail I'm getting out of all of these quotes so far between Favreau and Robert Rodriguez, is that you're looking at a guy who wants the power, doesn't really know how to do it, but he's going to try to figure it out as he goes, while also trying to ward off people who want that same chair. So I think that's what it's starting to look like to me. I don't know. What do you think?
It's a little interesting because you painted the picture of, I don't really think Bib Fortuna took over the Empire or anything like that. I never got that impression. I got the impression that when Jabba died, everybody left, and he's like, it's like in a lone room. Yeah. I felt like they left the castle, and he goes, well, if nobody wants this abandoned house in the middle of the desert, I'll be playing the king
of the castle.
Yeah, and he's not at all. Boba comes back, and he almost expects there to be someone in power that he's gonna have to kill, and it's Bib Fortuna. He's like, okay, no, this is stupid. Just kills the guy, no problem, because he's no threat whatsoever. And then he says, this is gonna be my new home base. But I think he's starting at zero. I don't think people are coming after the empty house. I think he's starting at zero.
What do you think the pipeline of information is, though, in terms of Tatooine and his accessibility to people and the rumor mill and stuff? He falls into the Sarlacc pit. He doesn't know that Jabba gets killed or the katana gets blown up or anything like that. Do you think there's any chance he rolled into Jabba's palace thinking Jabba was still there, or do you think he had found out already that Jabba was killed?
He knows Jabba's killed because I think he might not have known by the time he got eaten by the Sarlacc and all that. But I think he's been out, and I think he's been landscaping Tatooine for a while.
Doing a little detective work.
But the question is why didn't he make that decision earlier? Was he really waiting to get his armor back? That seems a little shaky. You were already on Tatooine, chilling. You were watching over some of these other characters doing their thing. And then all of a sudden Mandalorian shows up, gets that armor, and then you go after Din? Why didn't you go after Gob? It's a little weird thing. I don't think they've yet explained that. And I'm also a little under the impression that they just won't. I think they might just go in and be just, here it is. We won't get the Sarlacc explanation. We won't get what he's been up to explanation. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how they play this thing out, because I think one thing that I assume they're going to do is preserve what old school Boba Fett fans think of Boba Fett, because I'm not one to say you got to make sure you appease to the original fans of said character. But for Boba Fett, I think you do, because it's one of those things where our generation and people younger than us will never be able to understand why the kids who were kids when Empire came out love Boba Fett so much. And it's because they got the action figure first. They saw him in that cartoon first. And they were able to build this mystery and aura about this character that when they finally saw him in the movie talking to Darth Vader, they're like, whoa, this figure that I ordered and that I'm playing with and stuff, he's there and he's real. He's realized he's our guy and he's different and stuff like that. To us, it was just like, oh yeah, Boba Fett, the guy who falls into the side of the sail barge and falls into that pit. Boba Fett, that guy, yeah. So it's always going to be different, and we're always going to see it from those different lenses. And those original Boba Fett fans are always going to see him a way we'll never get to. I think they understand that, and this is one character where I think it's not like toxic to cater to the OG fan. I think that's what Boba Fett is rooted in, and I think they're going to make sure they respect that. And I think Favreau understands that too, because he was one of those kids playing with the figures too, and he wanted to make it a Boba Fett series. So I think it's going to be one of those things where we see Boba Fett really doing Boba Fett things. So I think this whole, like I said, this whole thing about him being this like diplomatic, ruling with respect thing is just him just trying to lull people to sleep, and then he's going to bludgeon them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. I think them trying to say, the mainstream fans of Star Wars who really are only familiar with Boba Fett from the movies, they need to see this character in a new light. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't think that's no one's goal would be for that to be the case, that they're going to make this character something that he wasn't back then. Even you could say, maybe his character was a little different in like Legends or something, what they did, but I don't really think they ever did. I always felt like they kept him. I mean, I never read the Legends stuff, but my understanding of Boba Fett and why people liked Boba Fett was that it was just an extension of what we saw on screen. Like, oh, I bet that character's really cool. And then they like made him really cool. Like in the stories, it just was what you expect him to be. So I would feel like it would be a departure from what most fans even assume they know about Boba Fett. And then also what Legends fans do feel they know about Boba Fett. This needs to live up to that concept too.
And do those fans who are Legends fans and like the OG Boba Fett fans who were 8 in 1980, who are like 50 now, do they know that in canon Boba Fett is the one who revealed Luke Skywalker's name to Darth Vader? But probably not. So they've tried to like grant Boba Fett with more importance retroactively in new canon. I don't know that has reached everybody, but he's front and center stage now. He has his own show, and it's going to be curious how they do this. I hope all fans receive it well, and you can't not trust Favreau at this point. Robert Rodriguez, he only did the one episode, and people seem to like that. So if it's more of that, then I guess it'll be good. But it's like I said, 1 month away, so we'll find out very, very soon.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some other stuff that happened in that Empire article, which is Dave Filoni on he says thrilling process of writing the Ahsoka story as he always wanted to tell. So the thing here is that he was talking a little bit about all the shows that he's working on, but specifically he was asked about the writing process because he's currently scripting. He says it's thrilling. I got to tell you, it's something you'd imagine doing for a long time, and then it's kind of startling when you're sitting there and now you have to do it. And he goes on to talk a little bit about more how he had this idea in his head and this was the story. But then now that they've progressed with a lot of new characters, including Din Djarin and Grogu and other things like that, when they want to tell that Ahsoka story, it kind of has to be rewritten and revised to branch out of that core story that is The Mandalorian. And how that's all coming together is, I guess, like, he says it's like a thrilling process. So I don't know if you want to add on to this. I'll go ahead and start with this too. I like hearing that the concept for Ahsoka and the show is something that he kind of planned, but he has absolutely like enjoyed the process of readapting it to what makes sense. Kind of in a I mean, I've already mentioned Thrawn. I'm wearing the Thrawn thing tonight, but like we had this idea of Legend Thrawn, but now he's a new canon character, so we kind of have to readapt him just a little bit, and we're cool with that and how we can make it still the same core story, same core character, same core idea, but revise it with new possible timeline and surrounding new planets, new core characters that are key characters. I really I don't think that what he's saying is going to be like, wow, I didn't think he was doing that. I imagine most fans probably understand that idea, that when he had these ideas for what happened to Ahsoka, what happened to Ezra, he probably wasn't writing, well, there's going to be this Mandalorian guy, you know, and then there's going to be like a baby Yoda character. Like, obviously, all that stuff is now like, hey, we've created the Mandalorian kind of sub-universe of Star Wars, and we want you to bring your Ahsoka story to life within that universe and within that context. And he's like, okay, all right. So I did have this one character, maybe I'll rewrite him to be Din Djarin, and maybe that shifts the story up a little bit, but
maybe.
I mean, we don't know. I'm saying, like, it could have been anything. But again, this is really about the Ahsoka show itself. But I'm saying, I think, like, with not just what happened in the show, Dave Filoni is a lore person. So when he's writing the show, okay, Ahsoka's walking on a planet. He also has this other story that we'll probably never see, which is, how did she get on that planet? And that's that story, that lore, that understanding of how that character got on that planet has to now be retracked. And he's like, well, it was that she met this guy, but now I'm going to kind of change that guy and re-visualize the whole story in the context of maybe that person was actually Din Djarin, you know? And maybe the original character was like this one child, but now it's the child, you know, and I can kind of revise it, whatever. Anyway, well, what are your thoughts hearing, you know, that he's working currently on the Ahsoka show and how it's all coming together?
This is one of those things where it's gonna, like, there's nothing to worry about. And what I mean by that is not to say, like, this is gonna be guaranteed great, but the only person who was ever going to be writing this show was Dave Filoni. So no matter what happens, whether it's good or bad, it's not one of those things where it's like, I wish I, you know, saw the Colin Trevorrow version of the Ahsoka series, man.
Oh,
like
that's
that,
a good point.
You know, what could have been if it was, you know.
They're not going to bring in Gary Whitta to rewrite.
Right. Oh yeah. Or Gary Whitta was one of the original writers. Who's the one?
Sorry. Tony Gilroy.
Yes. Yeah, Tony Gilroy, who's now doing Cassian Andor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this was Dave Filoni's always. So we go into that knowing that. So whatever we end up getting, we were going to get. Now I think where it sort of has deviated in the timeline is he probably wrote the original story treatments for this idea as Rebels was ending, or maybe even while he was writing the Rebels finale, and thinking like, you know, we're probably looking at doing this in a new animated show about Ahsoka or something. And that's why Rebels ended there, and we're going to take it here and continue with these characters, but in animated, kind of like what they did with Bad Batch off of the end of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Same nucleus, same heart, same vibe, but it's new, it's different. Then Disney Plus comes along. He gets brought in with Favreau to do Mandalorian. It becomes a huge success. Season 1. They're like, he's like, I got this idea for this show I was going to do animated. He probably talks to Kathleen Kennedy. They're like, can we make this work on live action? Let's test Ahsoka out in Mando Season 2, see how fans receive someone else being Ahsoka. It doesn't really have any implications on her story. It's just a matter of her finding this person. And we'll just use this woman on this planet to have the knowledge of where Thrawn is, and that's all we need. And that's the only reason to have Ahsoka there or whatever. And then like the Grogu connection and stuff is nice as well. But then he, you know, now it becomes this thing that I had the story treatment for animated. How do I make this into a live action thing? You probably have to reel it in a little bit, because sometimes with animation you could do obviously much crazier things than you do with a live action character in terms of like how they even act and the dialogue, and it's definitely different than live action. Still Star Wars, still has those beats and those feelings. I do love a lot of what he's saying here. I always love Dave Filoni interviews. I'm not necessarily in love with everything he's done for Star Wars. I think some of his stuff is a little too Easter eggy and callbacks in the Clone Wars, if you pay attention enough, and that's fine. I still like that stuff. But in terms of what he's talking about with the collaboration, with Jon Favreau and saying like, this is the story I always wanted to write. But the fact that you have other creatives like Jon Favreau, they can help lend dimensions and depth to what you're doing. I think that's amazing because, Filoni's new to live action. And I think that's really important to have someone as seasoned and successful as Jon Favreau to help him understand how this medium works and this type of storytelling works, because it is different than animated without question. And I think Favreau is going to be like the unsung hero here in terms of helping Filoni get to that point that a lot of fans were always hoping he would, which is, we the past few years, we've been hearing people saying like, we want Dave Filoni to direct the Star Wars movie. People were even saying they were hoping he was going to direct Episode 9 or, that sort of stuff. I think his relationship with Favreau is genuine. It's real. It's strong. And they both have things that they've learned off each other. Favreau especially learning about lore from Filoni. Filoni learning about how to do this stuff well from Favreau. And I think that's going to go a long way for this Ahsoka series. So I think Filoni being the guy takes pressure off in terms of the expectations, because he was only going to be the only one doing it anyway. So whether it's good or bad, that's what we were getting. You can rest that, put that down as exactly what that is, and then add to the fact that Favreau's still like his sort of partner in crime here. I think we're in for something really special, and I'm curious to see. Do we know is Filoni directing all of that series? Has that been talked about? Am I missing something there, or has that not been really discussed? I could see it, right? Because he's already directed stuff for Mandalorian. It's a limited series. Yeah. Maybe he just wants to direct the whole thing. What do you think? I don't know.
I would imagine that it's probably more along the lines of there would be a chance that right now Mandalorian is being run by John and Dave, that Ahsoka would just be Dave. Like John might actually step out of it a little bit and let Dave pick the directors and stuff more along those lines.
Okay.
Now Dave might still do the first episode or the last episode or something like that. He might actually direct the episode where she dies.
Definitely the
whatever.
Last, right?
Yeah, I don't know. However you want to do it, but I think it would be very similar to him just being the overseer, much like Jon Favreau is with The Mandalorian. And Dave is there too, but I think I'm leaning towards like maybe Dave just kind of handles this one more on his own.
That. Yeah.
I was thinking too, just another fun thing too is like this. We were kind of describing how maybe he had the stories and he's rewriting them as things kind of happen. Kind of reminds you of George Lucas back in the day when surely did have these ideas of how all of it came together, but then he actually made the movie and things changed, and then he had to work on 5 and 6 and then eventually 1, 2, and 3, and all those ideas of what he had written at one point had to be shaped as he created his own content. So as Dave Filoni created this content that is The Mandalorian, he had to, throughout the process, reshape this whole thing. Like, oh man, I thought this was open season when I wrote Ahsoka, so this was totally the timeline they were in. But now this Mandalorian character's out there, so that doesn't make sense. He's probably been rewriting the Ahsoka slowly, as it's been going on, because he's been thinking that's probably going to happen. And then he got it, and now he's actually in the point where he's sitting there and writing it. He's like, yeah, this is the moment. I have to make it official now.
He's got to have her end game in mind already, right? He's probably had that in mind for a long time.
I believe so. Yeah. I believe that it's one of those things like, I know how she's going to die, but or she's going to say goodbye or whatever. I know her end, but I don't know how we get there yet, kind of thing. He doesn't know the details of how it all goes down.
I have the last frame, but I have a lot of blank pages in front of it. Like I have the last page. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Like she's like, I don't know, like she's definitely going to disappear into the Force, and it's going to involve, a walking away or something like that. That's how it's happening. Yeah. But I don't know who's there and what her lines are or whatever,
Right.
Yeah. I got
right. Well, it's like, I used to write songs. You used to write songs on a much more successful level than me. But like sometimes you're like, man, that would be like a killer ending to a song. And you're like, I have no idea what comes before that or anything like that. But I have this part, and I know I want this to end a song. And it's just like kind of like that's how he probably has it on a notebook somewhere, knowing him, on a drawing, of like the end of Ahsoka. And the more I say it, like I was thinking like she's going to sacrifice herself and do something for Ezra, and that's going to be her big, moment. But I could also see like this sort of epilogue thing, like you're saying, where like they flash forward and she's older and she kind of dies like Yoda does with peace under like a blanket or something. And then we see her as a Force ghost with Anakin or something like that,
Yeah, I'm still in that mindset that him being in the show is him having no lines and just literally being like Luke and Leia at the end of Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
He's just there. It's just the Force ghost. I think that's all that is.
Imagine they don't even pay him for it and they just use the same exact Force ghost shot as Return of the Jedi, but they like flip it, they mirror it or something.
Well, no, I'm thinking like it's like Kenobi stuff, and they're like we got 5 shots to do today. No, wait, hold on, 6. And they're just like, like they're not gonna pay him for it, and they're like, in this shot, just stand here against this green screen and then smile, like, and then
Filoni's undercover as like a Rhodian, later. And he's sitting next to the camera, like, yeah, that's good, yeah. He's on set as an extra, but he's there to just make sure they get the shot right.
Yeah. Let's they need a little bit of dialogue, so they like fake a haircut, like just a few snips off the top. Like that's his scene.
Right. Yeah. A few snips. Wink, 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 wink. Yeah. Who's that Rhodian wearing a cowboy hat?
Yeah,
Who's
exactly.
that guy? Don't worry about that. Don't look at that guy.
Hey, we got another story though about this Empire article, and it has to do with Kathleen Kennedy talking about 2 of the upcoming properties. One we know a lot about. It has to do with Obi-Wan. And I think particularly that story seems a little fluff. It seems a little like, okay, what do you want her to say? That's probably exactly what it is. She said, they're so excited to be back together, Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, that it was very emotional when they saw it. They hadn't spoken in a long time. And it's really great to see them all together. Cool. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's neat to hear that, but I already knew that or imagined that to be the case so clearly. The other part of what she said was very interesting, though, because she said, she was asked about the sequel trilogy characters and their future, and she said, certainly those are not characters we're going to forget. They will live on, and those are conversations that are going on with the creative team as well. So that, to me, was kind of the more poignant section of this story, because I'm like, wait a second, that means they are actually having conversations. Not that I didn't know they weren't, but it seemed a little more official when she's saying, no, of course we're talking about that. We've got these amazing sequel trilogy characters that our creative teams are working on ways that will allow audiences to not forget that they're still around, I'm like, that seems like you're actively looking for ways to bring these characters back in properties, which doesn't necessarily mean live action, but it does mean that if you're moving forward past that Rise of Skywalker timeline, you're probably looking at something official or big. You know what I mean? I don't think she's referring to Forces of Destiny
or comics.
Yeah, or something very. No, I think that's just like, those are things that they can kind of fit in, and those fill in the gaps and stuff like that. But I think what she's discussing here
I hope you're right, man.
Live action or a longer animated series or a video game that obviously has like a story mode where the canon is going to be important.
That's the thing. So animated, like, fine. I'd rather Star Wars do an animated series with characters that, like, we're meeting for the first time again, like Rebels was.
Sure.
Because if they do an animated series for, like, Rey and Finn and stuff, they're probably not going to get the actors back for them. And I know, whatever. I want these people to be playing the characters. That's like when people said, like, would you be happy if they made Solo 2 happen as an animated series? No, I wouldn't. Because Jonas would have zero involvement in it, first of all. And I want him back. He's an amazing ambassador for the franchise for fans. Um, and Alden Ehrenreich I'd want back too, not as a voice. I'd want him as Han Solo. So it's the same thing here. So I hope you're right, man. I hope this is like when she's saying that, she means in a big way, whether that's films in 10 years or a live action Disney Plus shows. Also, let's not forget, like, yeah, maybe people didn't, a lot of people or a percentage of the population didn't love some of the sequel movies, and that's fine. They still made a lot of money. Even like the last one, like the first one was always going to make a lot of money, and it made the most, of course, because you're getting all the actors back. The nostalgia's there. It wound up being a very good movie. Everyone felt pretty good about it. Last Jedi came out, and you can still rest on the fact that this is Luke Skywalker's movie, so we're going to get box office for Luke Skywalker. Leia's still here. On the third one, it was really all on the backs of the younger generation, the new characters. It was very minimal presence. Like Carrie Fisher was literally gone. They had to use old footage. Mark Hamill was in it for one scene. Harrison Ford was in it for one brief scene that we didn't even know they were going to be in it officially.
Yeah. He was like not in it really.
Yeah, so that movie was on the backs of these characters, and it still made over $1 billion. So, and as time goes on, and the young kids who watch The Force Awakens get into their teens and their early 20s and stuff, we've been saying this, they're going to be the ones doing the podcasting and stuff. These characters are now going to be considered like fan servicey, like, oh my God, there's Babu Frick, BB-8, Dio. Like, before we know it, all these new characters they introduced are going to hold a similar sort of legacy as the other characters did coming into this trilogy. And I think maybe they're understanding that. And as more of these movies stumble, James, like Rogue Squadron, who knows what's happening with that? Then you have Taika's, we don't know what's going on with Feige. Rian Johnson, we've been talking about, who knows? Maybe they're realizing maybe these, like, we don't get too crazy and wild with the theatrical stuff. Maybe this is our crew, and we bring them back sooner than we thought. So I hope you're right. I hope the discussions she's talking about, or the ideas for these characters, is in a live action way. Mm-hmm. But then, yeah, like you said, I agree with you on the Obi-Wan stuff. Like, she didn't really say too much. She really didn't say anything.
Guys, can you believe it? They were excited to see each other.
Imagine she was like, we really had to convince Hayden to work with Ewan again. It was a challenge, because like that would have been interesting, but this is like the most PR fluff of PR things, and that's fine. Whatever.
What if she got confused and she was like, well, it was hard to convince him to get back together, because I mean, I think the last time they saw each other, like Ewan ended up like cutting off Hayden's legs and stuff, and everybody's like,
screaming at him.
Kathleen, you know that was the movie, right? That didn't really happen.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Obviously, we spent the most time on the sequel trilogy characters part, and I agree. I think that was the juiciest part of Lucasfilm president's comments.
Yeah. Speaking of comments, that's a good one to add if you guys are watching on YouTube or something like that. How you think we should take this. She says, there's these characters from the sequel trilogy, and our creative team is working on ways so that the audiences don't forget who they are. What do you think that means? Is that live action, or is that just something that's very strong canon-based, like a AAA title video game, or an animated series or a live-action series on Disney Plus that is not necessarily like the three of them, but it's like Finn. You know what I mean? It's just like his show or something along those lines. Who knows? Or all three. Maybe Poe gets the video game, Rey gets the movie, Finn gets the Disney Plus series or something. Although I think that's a little weird to split them up like that,
Yeah, we already had them split up for so much of the sequel trilogy.
Yeah. All right, well, we got a couple other things we wanted to get through real quick. Ludwig Göransson scoring a Grammy nomination for The Mandalorian Season 2. Kind of funny play on the word score there. No, it's not a huge surprise. If you guys want to go check out the Star Wars Newsnet article on it, there's a couple of specific tracks that are picked out as like, hey, these are exceptionally good tracks that maybe you haven't really thought about listening to. Like, when you think of The Mandalorian Season 2, you're probably still thinking of that core Mandalorian song. It's like, No, he's winning an award for season 2. So go listen to maybe these specific tracks that are particularly noteworthy. And we wish him the best of luck. We hope he gets the Nami, the Nami win.
The Nami.
The Grammy nominated, but win there. The other thing too is this is kind of interesting. It came from Twitter, but from an official person who was working on the properties and stuff. Battlefront 3 apparently was pitched from DICE to EA, but because of the way these titles work, it's very similar to like Pacific Rim 3, like they say, well, if you want to make a sequel, you got to go bigger, you got to go better for the third one, for the next one, it's always got to be that. And if that is the case, then this is the money we would need to make it happen. This is how much we expect the property would need to sell in the long run. EA ran the numbers and they said, nah. Nah. So it's possible at this point Battlefront 3 never sees the light of day, considering it was pitched and it never happened. Now, that's not to say that another company can't handle it, because I could be mistaken on this. I don't really know the details, but I believe Battlefront was originally handled by somebody else. I also know that Call of Duty on a regular basis, I don't know how it stands anymore, but I remember back in the day it flopped between studios. Like every year it was this studio's release, and then the next Call of Duty game that came out a year later was by this studio, and then they went back and forth like year after year. I'm not saying somebody else couldn't do Battlefront 3, but the story is DICE pitched it, EA said no. So if you're looking forward to that, maybe read in the story and come up with your own thing here. That is really it. John, I don't know if you wanted to mention this here or not, but one other thing quickly is Star Wars Newsnet has a new look. Did you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars Newsnet is entering its 10th year of existence, and for the first time, it has a brand new design and look. Layout, in my opinion, is awesome. Val, who is the creator of Star Wars Newsnet and site owner, editor-in-chief, decided to finally make a change, and he's been working really hard with the site development team, and talking with us in the on the team for feedback on the look and the colors and the windows and the design and stuff. And we finally all kind of put our ideas in and stirred it up, and what you see now in Star Wars Newsnet is the new look. I hope everyone's enjoying it. I think it's awesome. James, I know you've been digging it. And so entering the 10th year for the site, it finally has a brand new look. It's refreshing. It's like a new start. And with the big year coming up for Star Wars, what a better time. So definitely go to StarWarsNewsNet.com if you don't already, for all of your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. Now more than ever, because we not only have the breaking news at the top, we also have tabs at the top where you can find the podcast. You could find our sister site, Movie Newsnet, a bunch of other things. But also it's separated by subjects now. You can find all of your, you want all your Obi-Wan Kenobi news, bam, right there. Your Book of Boba Fett news, right there in another section. So it's very easy to navigate now. And of course, the Cantina forums are still there as well. So go check it out if you haven't in a while, StarWarsNewsNet.com. Best place for your Star Wars news and fun.
Yep, absolutely. That's all I was going to say. That's it for Resistance Report. And John, you can go ahead and take us into the next section.
All right. Now, I can't do this as good as Lacey does, but I'll do my best. This is the Patreon PodRace. All right, now, if you're listening or watching to the show, hopefully you are subscribed to TRB. You can do that on your favorite audio podcast app. We're really digging Spotify over here lately, but also, of course, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, SoundCloud, Podbean, really all of your major podcast apps, even some we didn't even know exist, were there. So you should be able to find us pretty easily. Just make sure you subscribe. If it has a rating system, shoot us a rating, 5 stars, whatever it has. We appreciate that. And share it with a friend. If you're about to watch Book of Boba Fett with somebody you know, or do a watch party, or somebody you know like Star Wars, let them know about the Resistance broadcast. We appreciate that very much. And of course, our YouTube channel. We just crossed 7,000 subscribers. I know that's small potatoes compared to some channels, but it's big to us here, and we appreciate everyone subbing to us there. So make sure you go into youtube.com/Star Wars Newsnet videos. Not only do we have the podcast there, but James and Kyle do the book discussions, what happened to catch you up on all the books. We also do unboxing videos with Lacey. I'm going to start getting back into the rumor and theory reviews. We do reaction videos there. A lot of other stuff in addition to the video version of the podcast is there, and it's free to subscribe. So go over to youtube.com/Star Wars Newsnet videos and subscribe. If you want more, go to patreon.com/Resistance Broadcast. That's where you can support us. Starting at $2 a month, you can sign up for exclusive episodes. We do bonus episodes for the podcast on Patreon. We also do commentaries. We have other perks and rewards and benefits. We have a Discord server for tiers 3 and up, which, James, is an amazing time. Everyone in there gets along. It's such a good time to be
I've said that
there.
before. I think that's like the number one combo, if you will, like of a restaurant.
Yeah.
Like it's
right.
That particular tier is like you get all the stuff that's on the regular site, but then you also get into the chat, and that really opens up the whole Patreon.
And it's such a fun time in there. Yeah, everyone gets along no matter what movie's your favorite or not. It's refreshing, and it's a testament to our little community, our little corner of the galaxy here. But we do want to say a special thank you to our Patreon generals. That is Carmelo, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, John Risi, Jetta Rosewater, Paul Olson, Jake Houchins, Oliver Lewis, Frank Grande, Haz Aslam, Joe Ritchie, Darth Hurricane, John Charlton, Nick Kratz, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Joey Mayfield Stewart, Nathan Shank, and Val Trichkoff.
Yeah.
And our Spice Runners, David Probus, Neil Shaw, Double C Chris, Kendall Gelnar, Ryan Wara, Dave Hornack, Micah Harrison, Thomas Hennessy. Thank you all for your support. So this is the time where one of our generals or Spice Runners get to be on the show. We pitch you a topic, and you hit us with a minute or so of your take on that, and you get to be part of the podcast. This week, we have one of our OG generals. He goes by General Beard. His name is John Risi. He is the man, and you'll see why, if you're watching on video, why he's called General Beard. James, his question this week was, who is an actor or actress you would really enjoy seeing in Star Wars, and what type of role would you want them to play? So, Mr. Risi,
okay,
take it away.
Hi, TRB. Hi, John, James, and Lacey. General Beard here. I would really like to see Dave Bautista in Star Wars. I think he could pull off Darth Bane really well and be an intimidating Sith Lord. We've seen his drama acting chops in Blade Runner 2049 and most recently in Dune. And I think if they gave him a Disney Plus show, multiple seasons, we could really retell and rework the story from the Darth Bane trilogy, which is now Legends novels, but a really great story. And watching him go from a laborer on that planet to a Sith Lord and creating the Rule of Two could be really compelling and really awesome. And who doesn't want more lightsaber fights? So that's my pick for what actor I would like to see in Star Wars. General Beard, signing off.
All right. There it is. Wow. I gotta say, I wouldn't have thought of that. So, pretty cool pick. James, what do you think about Mr. Risi's pick here? Dave Bautista as Darth Bane.
I like John, but I don't love this pick. I think
that's honest. At least you're being honest with me.
Hey, here's because I get it. All of your points are very true. That as far as a wrestler or someone involved in that type of entertainment making their way over to movies, that's very rare that you have someone that is as successful as, The Rock or John Cena, for instance. Dave Bautista is absolutely one of these people who are John, where'd you go? I'm just kidding.
You can't see me.
Yeah. No, it's very rare that you have somebody who is as successful as they are. And I think that, it's hard to argue against what some of the other ones are doing, but I do think that Dave Bautista is making a very particular choice with, say, Denis Villeneuve, who he's worked with a couple times. That's smart. That guy makes good movies, and you are cementing yourself in a legacy of classic film that is just free from critical review. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, like, it will get critical praise. It's not going to get bashed. You're not going to be laughed at or something along those lines. That being said, though, I still think he's being utilized to the best of his ability, but would at this point is not someone who could lead something huge. I think he is being used perfectly in the roles and places that he is.
Okay.
But if you're talking about doing a Darth Bane series, he looks the part, but I think it's still going to be a little bit longer before I would have faith that he could lead a Star Wars property, live action Star Wars property. But he's definitely making good choices for his career as of now in the film world, in my opinion. Huge props to him. I'm just a little shaky on where you're at, John.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Dave Bautista too. And you know, he's in his 50s. I don't know what, you know, how Darth Bane's supposed to look canonically at this point. I don't know that
he looks like Dave
makeup,
Bautista.
yeah, makeup and stuff. Yeah. I would have no problem with the pick. I think it's a make sense type of pick. So it sounds like I could see that being something that is done, especially the way they seem to like to pick people based on momentum. And Bautista certainly has momentum in his favor right now. People are taking him seriously, and you're absolutely right on that, John. So, and I think Darth Bane would be a very cool thing to explore. You know, let's go back further. Let's find out how this whole Rule 2 thing started, how this guy came about. Let's tell that in canon. That could be very, very interesting. Elaborate more on that flash of him we saw in the Clone Wars. I think that could be really cool. So yeah, I don't have much else to add. I think you did a great job as always. You always bring a unique perspective, and unique point. So I knew you would do that with this topic, and you did. Also, I loved your seeing your collections there, man. Now I gotta ask you though, behind you, you have a Vader. Is that 2 Palpatines in there? You have to answer that for me. I'm not really sure, but
I think he's actually. I think he rotated he straightened his image, but I think he's on a hill. Because if you look at all his action figures, they're all like this.
Yeah, maybe. And he's also wearing a BSR shirt, Black Series Rebels.
I noticed that too. Yeah,
Alex and Steve.
Midnight Movie Club.
So very cool. Yeah, very cool, man. So thank you, John, and thanks to all of our patrons for all of your support and everyone for their support. So, James, before we get out of here, I know we're on an hour or so already. Someone had pitched this last week as a question, and we didn't get to it, so we got to do it now. So Zach at Zach_Stitch wrote, "Hey TRB, since Book of Boba Fett is going to have flashbacks, do you think we'll find out that it was Boba Fett who killed Owen and Beru?" Which is a fan theory. I'm going no, but I didn't even know this was a fan theory, to be honest.
You didn't know that fan theory?
No.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Is this like a long-standing thing?
Well, I'll put the clarification of why that fan theory makes sense. The first thing Darth Vader says to Boba Fett is no disintegrations.
That's a good point.
So if you think of Boba Fett's like signature move as being disintegrating his enemies or his targets or whatever it is, somebody puts the hit out to try to get, Luke. He can survive, but Boba Fett's searching for him, which we actually know also canonically that he was kind of put on a hunt. It's a different time, but he was kind of put on a hunt at this time by Darth Vader to go after Luke. And so it seems very reasonable that if there was a bounty to be had on Tatooine at the time placed by the Empire, Boba Fett probably would have been the go-to person.
Yeah.
And then the disintegrations thing. So
percentage-wise, like, what do you think that there's a chance that they would do that? It's got to be low still, right?
I don't think they would do it. But if they were going to do it, like if they were going to show what happened to his aunt and uncle somehow, or clarify the story, I think there's like a 70% chance they would tie it in.
Really?
Well, I don't think they'll do it. I don't think that's part
okay.
of the story. But I'm saying if they were like, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to show what happened there, or we're going to clarify in some dialogue what happened that day, I think tying it in with that would be very easy and cool for a lot of fans. They'd be like, what? That was him? You know?
Yeah, it's definitely a great theory, and you bringing up the disintegration thing kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that's the thing that is the catch on that like seals it.
That made it cooler to me. Maybe we see a different flashback where he does disintegrate somebody for Vader in this show. Who knows? Yeah. But I don't think they'll do it because it's trampling on the original movie and George Lucas. And unless he had that idea somewhere, I don't think that they would do that and retcon that big of a moment in Luke's life. So I don't think
you know what
that
they could
become a thing. But I don't know.
You know what they could do is they could show a Boba Fett at that time or now or whatever doing that, and the body ends up looking very similar to what we saw in A New Hope, and they'll say, let the fans put the connections together. If they want to write that story. But I also think that maybe if we're talking about disintegrations from a Mandalorian character, we also have kind of seen that. Din Djarin's gun fires and disintegrates people. Jawas, like, boom, done, disintegration.
But then like all the firepower that happened at the Jawa Sandcrawler, like Obi-Wan was saying, like, this had to have been Imperial stormtroopers.
Yep. Yeah.
And Luke said if they trace the robots here, and he says robots. If they
I think
robots
that's so
here,
great.
So
go
I don't
back
know.
and rewatch that. He says robots.
Yeah, it's a great question, Zach, and the theory is very fun, and I enjoy it. I just don't know that reality will set in on that, but very cool. So thank you, and thanks everybody for listening and watching. We kind of covered all of our plug type stuff already, so let me just say, Lacey. We'll be back next Monday. Mm-hmm. You could find her on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gilleran, and she'll be making more videos for the channel in the future, of course. And me, you can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey, writing and editing at Star Wars Newsnet, and my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies. We're putting out our episode on Gladiator tomorrow. So be sure to check that out on your favorite podcast app. Yeah, James is doing the thumbs down thing. Because Gladiator. James, how about you?
Yeah, no, I like Gladiator. You probably talked about the sequel to Gladiator that's been pitched and all that.
I don't even know about that.
Oh my gosh. Look it up if you want your mind blown, but also like if you want to lose faith in Ridley Scott and all sorts of other stuff. But anyway, you can, guys, if you want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, you can find me at Myra Trunks.
All right. We'll be back on Thursday where we're going to have a discussion, and we're going to show our versatility because we're going to get a little serious topic that's going on in Star Wars about betrayal. So it should be a fun, interesting dive into a theme in Star Wars. But until then, we hope you enjoy your weeks, and we'll kick off Thursday with you in December. It'll be December, James. December 2nd.
Wow.
It's amazing. When's your birthday? That's around your birthday, isn't it?
The 12th. Yeah.
12. All right. Soon enough. And then on Thursday, I'll actually, as the episode comes out, I will be in LA for the Schmodown Spectacular. I'm not competing, but I will be out there. So that should be fun as well. But anyway, we'll see you Thursday morning with another episode right here on the Resistance broadcast. And as always, we'll see you around, kids.